So I've been using iPhones since 2012. So for the past 7 years, it's been nothing but iPhones except for 1 week last year where I switched to the Google Pixel 3. And this year, I'm gonna do it again. I'm gonna ditch the iPhone in favor of the Google Pixel 4. Alright, so let's jump right on into this thing. I'm not gonna spend too long on an unboxing because I'm already late to that party. Let's go ahead and open this thing up. This is an interesting unboxing experience. Oh, there it is. Okay, I got it. So here we have the Google Pixel 4 and something else. Oh, it's actually the Pixel 4 XL. Oh, okay. So this is the big boy. That actually is going to be interesting because I'm coming from using an iPhone XS Max, which is a hefty phone. This thing's pretty big. It is oh so orange, I can tell you that for sure. All right, let's take a look. Compared to the iPhone XS, wow, it's almost exactly the same size. The matte sides and the matte back, definitely the way to go. The thing that bothers me a lot about the XS, and the 11 Pro has these too, the stainless steel rails, they look really good for about 15 seconds. And then once they get fingerprinty, they kind of feel weird. I don't particularly like using cases. Call me crazy, if you use a case, this really doesn't matter at all. But I like the idea of having these matte sides and also the matte glass back, which the iPhone 11 Pro has, the Pixel 3 has. It really is nice because it's comfortable to hold and it doesn't show a ton of smudges. So I'm gonna go ahead and set this thing up, and today we'll start my 1 week with the Google Pixel 4 XL. So it's day 3 of my switch to the Google Pixel 4. Specifically, this is the 4 XL 128GB. It's the most expensive one you can buy. It costs $1,000. And that's, I think, an interesting price point because I've heard a lot of comparisons of the base Pixel 4 to the iPhone 11, which is $100 less. However, when we go up to the high end with this phone, the most expensive one, $1,000, that puts it directly in competition with the iPhone 11 Pro. And then the size puts it in competition with the iPhone 11 Pro Max. You can see here compared to a XS Max, they're the same size. The iPhone 11 Pro Max is $100 more expensive and comes with half the storage, 64 gigabytes versus 128. So there is an argument to be made that this is a better value in some respects. Now, as far as the overall design and the build quality of the phone, I have to say, Google Pixel phones have always impressed me with their quality. The phone feels put together, it feels solid, but it is a tad on the heavy side, and it is actually noticeably thicker than my iPhone XS. Now, I haven't actually held the iPhone 11 Pro Max yet. I hear it's a little bit thicker than the XS series, so I'm not sure if this is thicker than that, but it is not a thin phone, to be sure. The one thing that has bothered me with the build quality of this phone is there is a surprisingly noticeable lip around the display. The transition from the display into the frame rails is not smooth. It's a little bit weird. It's not a huge deal, but it's a little off-putting to me. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about is forehead versus notch. Now, obviously, since 2017, iPhones have been all about the notch game, and the Pixel 3 and the Pixel 4 have a very noticeable forehead. Now, the Pixel 3 XL used to have a notch, but the Pixel 4 XL doesn't. And honestly, I'm kind of torn. So the thing that we have to keep in mind is, if you take a look at the iPhone notch, up there we have a camera, we have ambient light sensors, and we have Face ID equipment, as well as the audio port. And if we look on the Pixel 4, we have all of that same stuff, plus the Soli motion sensor. But the forehead on the Pixel is gigantic compared to the notch on the iPhone. So it does make you wonder why this forehead is so big. Were they not able to make their components as compact as they are on the iPhone? I'll be honest here, this might sound kind of crazy, and I know a lot of you are probably going to annihilate me in the comments for saying this, but from the past 3 days, I think I prefer the notch. When you're talking about the footprint of the phone compared to the screen-to-body ratio, the iPhone has a higher screen-to-body ratio because the screen, even though it's not completely seamless, it does reach higher up. So, for example, on the iPhone, the time, as well as your wireless Wi-Fi and your battery icon. Those things are all tucked way up in the top corners of the screen, which leaves more area for your applications. On the Pixel, those things don't have anywhere to hide. They're still stuck at the top of the screen, which means in most applications, you lose a little bit of that sliver up at the top to have those icons on the screen. Okay, so moving on to utility and usability. Well, navigation on this phone is really easy, and in part, I think that's due to the fact that it's literally the same. All of the gestures are the same as they are on iOS. So for example, if I'm in an application, swipe up from the bottom to go home, or swipe up and hold in the middle to access the app switcher. Or if you're in an application, you can swipe along the bottom to go between your open applications. That is identical to how it works on the iPhone. It's exactly the same, and I think that's a good thing. I personally think that that is the best way to navigate. I've gotten so used to it. I even prefer it over the home button. In fact, Apple also seems to prefer it over the home button. If you have an iPad that does have a home button, the swipe gestures all still work, even though the home button is there and does the same thing. Something that's not exactly the same, the 90 Hz screen. The 90 Hz screen is awesome. I love high refresh rate displays. I really wish that Apple would bump up above 60 Hz as they have on the iPad. I think doing ProMotion on a MacBook, on an iMac, on an iPhone, all of that stuff would be so nice, because macOS, iOS, iPadOS is already so smooth and optimized to run on all of their devices that if you could just push that frame rate up to 120, even 90 Hz, it's so nice. One thing that I have noticed that really bothers me is the emoji button on this keyboard is right next to the spacebar. Now, I think this is partly to do with me being left-handed, but I always hit the emoji button when I'm trying to hit the spacebar because they're so close together. It's kind of a pain, and I'm not sure if that's only because I'm left-handed and I primarily use my left thumb for the spacebar. So let me know down in the comments below, if you're right-handed, do you notice this as a problem, or is this not something that you've ever experienced before? I'm interested to see. So that's gonna do it for my day 3 impressions. I'm still working on figuring out just how feasible it would be for someone who's as integrated into the Apple ecosystem as me to actually feasibly switch to an Android phone for more than a short period of time. And we'll talk about that in the conclusion. All right, so it's day 5 with the Pixel 4 XL, and I just want to talk about 2 quick things. Number one, the cameras. I haven't taken a ton of photos with it. There's plenty of YouTubers out there that do really great camera comparisons, and frankly, I just can't compete with that. But it does shoot some great photos. Portrait mode is a lot better than it was on the Pixel 3. It does a great job at defining hair. However, there are some issues, like it still gets a little bit weird with faces, and some of the blurs are a little bit off. That's to be expected. iPhone does that too. But the Pixel 4, for whatever reason, they still don't have live portrait mode. It's always processed after you take the picture. iPhone has had live portrait mode since 2016, so I don't know why we don't have that. The other issue that I've had is the battery life. So I'm usually awake from about 8 a.m. to midnight every day, and my XS Max, which is a year old, makes it through that easily, 40 or 50% battery remaining. The Pixel 4 has been struggling. I've had it die on me 2 days, and it usually is under 15% with that amount of time, with the same amount of usage. So don't know what that's all about, and I've heard that the Pixel 4 normal size is even worse. Anyway, we'll go back into the conclusion now. Well, there you have it. It's been a week with the Pixel 4 XL, and it went well. I was surprised. Last year with the switch to Android, it was good for a couple of days, but by day 4 or 5, I was like, okay, I'm ready to go back to the iPhone. This time around, I could definitely see myself using this phone for an extended period of time. However, I can't see myself switching indefinitely to Android, or specifically the Pixel 4, and we'll talk about that in a second. So let's talk about Face Unlock and the solely motion sensor. Let's start with the motion sensor because, well, there's not a whole lot to say about it. It's really only useful if I'm like scrolling through Twitter and I want to skip a song and I just kind of yeet. Although sometimes you have to do it more than once. It's really not that useful. I'd be willing to bet that over time we'll get some more features added to the Soli motion sensor now that we have the hardware and the phone. So over the lifespan of this device, I imagine there will be more features. Although, let's be real here, Pixel phones only get updates for 3 years. Just saying, iPhones get updates for like 5 or 6 years. So Face Unlock is crazy fast. It's as fast as everyone says. However, unfortunately, it does work with your eyes closed, which is not great. And let's not forget that with the iPhone, not only do you have to have your eyes open, you have to actually look at the phone. So if I look at the camera, it's not going to let me unlock my phone. And while I'm at it, one of the things I really enjoy about the iPhone is having a lock screen where I can look at my notifications. Even if I'm looking at the phone and it's unlocked, I can still be just looking at the lock screen. Whereas with the Pixel, it always just puts me to the home screen and I'm unlocked and it's all ready to go. So when it comes to the iPhone, there are 3 things that keep me on this platform that I honestly can't live without anymore. Number 1, iCloud. Everything is synced. My notes, they sync on the desktop. If I find a website, I can use handoff and pull it up on a larger screen. I can AirPlay to an Apple TV. It's seamless, you don't have to think about it, and it works. Number 2 is AirDrop. I absolutely adore AirDrop. It's so useful. You can AirDrop memes to your friends that have iPhones. You can AirDrop documents onto a Mac. You can AirDrop videos and photos directly into the downloads folder instead of waiting for iCloud photos to sync up and all that stuff. Super nifty. And finally, iMessage. And I get that a lot of people, this isn't an issue because they use any of like a million other applications, but I and most of my friends use iMessage, and it has been quite a challenge to be a green bubble. I've received a lot of heat, not to mention the fact that if you're in any iMessage group chats, I just don't get those. So I have no idea what they've been talking about. Now, it is worth mentioning that I'm a college student, and Macs and iPhones are so ubiquitous in college that if you don't have one, you definitely feel a little bit left out. To give you an idea, I actually took a quick video in one of my classes. Okay, so everyone in the class with an iPhone, hold your phone up right now. And then everyone with an Android, hold your phone up.
Amazing.
So you see what I mean. Android people definitely feel left out on college campuses. So overall, my week with the Google Pixel 4 was a lot of fun. I really like this phone, and I'll be honest, the orange is growing on me. I think it's kind of cool. But as with last year, I can't switch full-time to Android. I'm too deep in the ecosystem. I can't make the switch. And as I've said before, it's a lot easier to make the switch if you're not embedded in the ecosystem. So if you have like a Windows PC or a Chromebook and an iPhone, those two aren't talking to each other as much, they're not embedded as much, so switching isn't as difficult. So that's going to do it for this video. Big thanks to Google for sending over the Pixel 4 XL. I'm definitely going to keep this phone around. It was a lot of fun to use. As usual, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Please consider following me on Twitter @LukeMiani, and definitely check out my subreddit, which is linked down in the description below. And with that, I'll see you all in the next video.